live in HD with coverage that's straight to the point. You're watching KWQC News at 10.
It's been amazing. I've just been in awe of all the support that we've gotten from all these people.
A Quad Cities teacher is overwhelmed by how much the community is behind her as she takes on a battle of her own, leukemia.
I said to myself and I said to my dad and prayed a little bit and said, if we have this opportunity once again, we're going to do everything in our power to see to it that we both get here.
Tonight, despite incredible odds of father and son, fellow veterans get a chance to go together on an honor flight. Plus, how local kids are joining in the effort to help honor the country's veterans.
It was the most painful experience I've actually ever been through.
A story of survival, 21 hours trapped underground. And tonight he shares his experience and how so many helped him through it.
And that story tops your first 6 minutes tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Gary Mativier.
And I'm Sharon DeRieg. He's home tonight after nearly an entire day trapped in one of the Maquoketa caves over the weekend. Emma Thompson and Logan Eliason were rescued from hundreds of feet underground. And today Logan sat down with KWQC's Bailey Dietz.
Well, the two 20-year-olds from Port Byron had been in the caves before, and with the caves back open this year, their group of friends joined the many flocking there to do some exploring, but Eliason never expected the return to end up like this.
And I was slipping further and further down as I was trying to dislodge myself from the rock, and I ended up all the way on my side, stuck in a crevice.
After watching his friend stuck in the same tunnel for nearly 4 hours, 20-year-old Logan Eliason finds himself in the same scary situation.
I was really frightened and I was breathing really quickly.
Rescue crews already on scene worked to get him free. Minutes turned into hours in the cold, cramped space.
For a couple hours, I was starting to get a little bit delusional. I was so thirsty and tired and cold.
Responders brought food, water, warm clothing, and most importantly, air down 300 feet into the cave. Eliason says he didn't have much concept of how much time was passing by, only that each minute seemed to be more painful than the last.
My leg and one of my arms was falling asleep because I couldn't maneuver out, and that was really scaring me.
After 20 hours, rescuers had chiseled the rocks jutting into his body away enough to pull him nearly out. So close, but crews themselves were running out of steam.
They switched out crews, and so there were a couple minutes where I was alone down there, and I just had nothing left, and I just collapsed on the ground.
The last push that got him freed completely, Eliason says, came from a higher power.
I just prayed that God would just empower me to be able to get over that ledge. My strength was gone, but I knew that his was not, and that's what pushed me through at the end.
Thankful for daylight.
I cried because it was just so powerful, and it was so good to be free.
And Eliason says words can't describe how grateful he is to the dozens that put their own lives on the line to save his.
Everybody was so self-sacrificing that it just blows my mind.
And as for returning to the caves, Eliason says,
at least not for a long time. I think I'll be staying above ground.
He says he's hoping for a hiking trip for the next weekend getaway with his friends. Eliason spent one night in the hospital for dehydration, but other than bumps and bruises, he's really in good shape. Emma Thompson also walking away in good condition. So Gary, an amazing outcome here.
Yeah, an adventure for him, Bailey. Thank you. Now that the Maquoketa Caves are back open and the weather is warming up, it is important to remember that while out exploring, to be safe and cautious of your surroundings out there.
They go quite a distance, it's, we always tell everybody, enter your caves at your own risk and your own level of experience in caving. If you feel uncomfortable with how small it's getting, trust your gut instinct, turn around and leave. Going at least buddies or more. We always recommend 3 people. Don't go by yourself, because if you do get stuck, there's no one there to go and get help.
Part of that is knowing your level of caving experience and making sure that you know your limits there. And if you do feel uncomfortable in an area, simply don't try it.
Honoring those who served our country. That's what the Quad City Honor Flight is all about. And it's a big moment for the Honor Flight, and we are live at the airport tonight to bring it to you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon DeRieg.
And I'm Gary Mativier, and what an exciting night we have on tap. This is the first official full Korean War Veterans Honor Flight. And it is quite the night as the emotion is really building in this room right here, because this is such an important flight to so many Quad Cityans. And as you look around, you can see hundreds and hundreds of people are gathered here for this. This has been an incredible journey to get to this point. By years, and about 2,000 veterans will have made the trip to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments and memorials built to honor their sacrifice. The crowd gathered here tonight for this first ever full flight of Korean War veterans. Tonight, complete coverage from all the honor flight trips, including how area school kids are getting involved. We have it all covered from all angles for you here tonight on your News at 10. Sharon?
Parts of Moline Cemetery could come sliding down unless repairs are made. Riverside Cemetery is one of the oldest cemeteries in the area. It's along 5th Avenue next to Riverside Park. The problem is with one of the hills, the highest point in the cemetery. KWQC's Erica Cervantes shows us why the hill could give way.
The oldest part of Riverside Cemetery is at the top. In the 1870s, a road was carved out along the hill. To reinforce the area, a retaining wall was put in.
150 years ago, it was a good place to put a cemetery, out of the way, up on top of the hill.
But time has taken its toll. Several areas of the wall are missing. Some are on the other side of the road or down the hill.
This is actually one of the stones that forms that wall. It's washed from the wall downhill about 50 feet.
Back in 2000, a study was done to see how much it would cost to repair the wall. It was $175,000.
Part of the reason it's so expensive is there's not a whole lot of room between the wall and the top of the hill here where you have a lot of the grave sites.
The Parks Department decided not to do the repairs because of a lack of funding. Then several years later, a rainstorm caused a mudslide, with mud making its way to the pool at Riverside Park.
At some point, something has to be done with the wall here, or there's a real good possibility of losing part of this bank.
That means everything at the top of the hill could end up at the bottom. City leaders are working to fix the problem. Aldermen want soil samples and repair estimates to start right away. In Moline, Erica Cervantes, KWQC HD News.
Well, as we mentioned off the top of the show, a big night for our local veterans, especially Korean War veterans. KWQC's Gary Mativier back at the airport tonight as we wait for that first flight of Korean veterans, Gary, to touch down, and a lot of excitement at the airport.
A lot of excitement, Sharon. A lot of the Korean veterans were telling me they weren't sure what kind of welcome home to expect. They saw the World War II welcome, but this is what they are getting ready to see tonight. And what makes this very interesting is Korean veterans, a lot of them feel they were sort of stuck in the middle, caught between World War II and Vietnam and forgotten. But tonight, an emotional day builds toward its end. Korean War veterans reflecting on what this all means for them and our country. Now seeing firsthand that the once forgotten war is forgotten no more.
Unbelievable. It's breathtaking.
The World War II Memorial has a feel that many describe as uplifting, full of life, hope, and honor for those who have sacrificed so much. Not far from it is a memorial that most admit has an entirely different feel, a different experience. Some call it harsh, unforgiving, ghostly, an eternal gravesite, a tribute that they will tell you fits what they lived through.
You're just as dead with those 54,000 as you would be with any place.
19 poncho-draped troopers representing a combat patrol of all branches of service. Reflected in the wall, each trooper becomes 2. 38 on patrol here, symbolic of the 38th parallel and the 38 months of war. Months away from home in a war that many did not even acknowledge.
At the time, I got home and people wanted to know where you've been. And, I spent 2 years. I was drafted.
The reminders of what happened there are forever etched in stone, deep inside our veterans and here on this granite wall. 24,000 anonymous faces. Faces many of the veterans and their families recognize or feel a connection to in a way most of us will never understand. Something about this place brings long-held emotions instantly to the surface, surprising even the strongest of men.
I didn't expect it to be like that.
What kind of feelings are coming back?
Oh, I got there late, but there was nothing there. And now I guess it's a booming country.
Have you been wondering how you would react to this day?
Yes. And I didn't think I would be like this. I had a lot of friends and had a lot of friends.
But behind the tears, something else is happening here on this day. Wounds concealed but not healed for decades are exposed again.
It's hard. This is really emotional. But you know, this is going to finalize it for me. But I can't put it into words. But I'm happy now. This is closure. It's really great. And you can almost hear them talk.
And as you look and see what people have built and people's reaction to it, you have not been forgotten.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't been forgotten. It's great. The whole country appreciates us, and we know that now. I'll never forget this. Never.
And as these people get ready for the Welcome Home celebration tonight, our coverage continues with how area school kids are also getting involved in an effort to salute our veterans.
KWQC was there today. Our own Gary Mativier is in Washington, D.C. with an opportunity to ask the president questions. Some of them from you, our viewers, but also got a behind-the-scenes look today. And that's where we find Gary tonight, live at the White House after a big day of tours and interviews and the president's call to action on tax breaks. Gary.
Yes, Sharon, and no doubt both parties are putting everything they have into the swing states right now. In fact, cover of USA Today, Iowa, center stage once again in this campaign as they put a lot of resources into it. Now, we have been on the phone also today with the Mitt Romney camp throughout the day, and you just heard a couple of their comments saying President Obama's response to even more bad economic news is a massive tax increase. It just proves again that the president does not have a clue on how to get Americans working again and help middle class. So we really saw firsthand today as we worked our way through the White House this debate and this battle that is really going to come to a head in the next few weeks as well. But we also got a chance today to catch up with some of the highest level cabinet members, and we asked them your questions. Here is their reaction. Secretary Iowa just got the 1-year freeze on No Child Left Behind. Some teachers I've talked with say they feel that they've been handcuffed with the federal government getting more and more involved in the schools. What is the goal of the federal government with our schools?
Well, that's the problem with No Child Left Behind. I think it was far too prescriptive top-down from Washington. So that's why we're providing increased flexibility. We've had a great working relationship with the state superintendent there in Iowa, Jason Glass, and his team. And this freeze gives the state a year to work through the issues, not have increased penalties. But we think the best ideas always come at the local level, not from us in Washington.
The Rock Island Arsenal, the First Army, that's the biggest institution for Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Where does that stand in terms of homeland security? How much do you rely on it? How much attention is the White House paying to the Rock Island Arsenal?
Well, we look at all of the assets around the country, the arsenals, other critical infrastructure, things that we need to have as a nation to make sure we're prepared and can defend ourselves. And so when we look across the country, things like the Rock Island Arsenal obviously pop up as things we want to make sure are incorporated into whatever planning we're doing.
Martha from Moline actually has questions. She's had a small business for 25 years, and she says, you know, job creation is so important that we're trying to press that as the backbone of the economy, yet the banks are still pretty tight on a lot of these small businesses. Is something being done to try to lighten that up and make banks a little more small business friendly?
Absolutely. We are now working with banks all over Iowa and Illinois and the whole country to make sure that small businesses get access to capital. And in fact, we've had a lot of success. In both Iowa and Illinois, we had record years last year. And in the Quad Cities area, we actually did more than $30 million worth of loans into the hands of small businesses backed by SBA guarantees.
But yet, despite all that, we are still hearing from a lot of small businesses that they are indeed struggling and having a hard time deciding whether to hire additional staff or not, or make capital improvements. Now, we have much more to come from the White House, including a sit-down interview with President Barack Obama, where we ask questions very specific to our area. And we'll have more for that as our live coverage from the White House continues. I'm Gary Mativier. Now back to you.
And again tonight at 10, look for Gary's one-on-one interview with President Obama, asking questions, some of them submitted by you, our viewers. We'll also talk with the local Romney campaign and find out more information on our website, kwqc.com. After a deadly weekend on the road, a new campaign started today in Illinois, all with hopes of keeping drivers safe.
I think it will deter a lot of the criminal element.
Working to lower the crime rates, what the city of Rock Island is talking about doing in high-crime neighborhoods.
My message to Congress is this: pass a bill extending the tax cuts for the middle class. I will sign it tomorrow. Pass it next week, I'll sign it next week.
Today, President Obama urging lawmakers to extend tax cuts for some Americans, as well as calling for tax hikes on millionaires at the $250,000 level. But the president has an even bigger message for Quad Cityans tonight concerning the largest employer of the area, the Rock Island Arsenal. And that tops your first 6 minutes. Good evening, I'm Sharon DeRick. Gary is on assignment tonight in Washington, D.C. He was given the chance today to sit down one-on-one with President Obama.
Good evening. Iowa's swing state status has brought us to the White House tonight as both parties vie for the votes that could determine who holds the most powerful job in the world come November. But Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, as they battle it out over taxes tonight, what could be a major signal from the White House for the QCA's largest employer. Tonight, an exclusive one-on-one interview asking the president your questions. Mr. President, for the American people, it seems like we've been experiencing crisis after crisis, from everything from student loans to the budget, all coming down to the wire. And we have the Rock Island Arsenal, which, as you know, is our largest employer. 8,000 jobs, about 500 private companies that do business with it. Right. There are concerns that if defense cuts happen because the commission was not able to reach a consensus, that those jobs could be in jeopardy. How do you, as a president moving forward, start to bring people together so we get past some of the stress that's affecting everyday lives of so many Americans? And is the Arsenal safe?
Well, let me tell you, I do think the Arsenal is safe. And part of it is because I, as the President of the United States, and my Secretary of Defense, and the men and women in uniform understand what an incredible service folks at the Arsenal provide. You know, Illinois is my home state. I've spent a lot of time at the Arsenal, and I'm very familiar with the incredible dedication and professionalism of folks who work there. So, you know, Congress likes to do things last minute. Ultimately, it usually gets done, but we end up putting folks under too much stress. I'm confident that we're going to be able to resolve the sequester issues and also the tax issues before people start having a genuinely fear for operations there. But you know, a good example of Congress being able to go ahead and solve some problems now and taking some stress out of people is the announcement I made today. I want to extend tax breaks to 98% of Americans. 98% would know their taxes aren't going up next year. And that would be good for them, but it'd also be good for the economy to provide that certainty. My Republican friends in Congress say they agree. They don't want to raise taxes on the middle class. Well, my attitude is let's get it done. Let's get it done next week or next month and take some of that uncertainty away. And what I've said, though, is what we're not going to do is extend tax breaks for folks like me who don't need it. And frankly, you know, the top 2%, those aren't where you know, the job generation is going to come from. And what I've asked folks to do is say, we can argue about that after the election. Let's not hold the middle class hostage when we're having a debate about what we do on that top 2%.
The last time you were in the Quad Cities, you went over the I-74 bridge as you
Yeah.
came into town. You stopped at Ross's.
I did.
Had a little Magic Mountain.
I did.
You remember that?
Man, that was impressive.
Yeah. Well, that bridge, Secretary LaHood has called one of the worst bridges he has seen.
Right.
How do we improve our infrastructure for things like that while still maintaining spending controls?
Well, the good news is we just got the transportation bill passed that sustains funding for existing projects. Now, that was the first step, because if we hadn't gotten that done, then a whole bunch of folks would have been laid off from jobs that are already underway. But the I-74 is a perfect example of why I've been calling for us to move some money up forward to put construction workers back to work on some of these big infrastructure projects. It will be good for the economy of the quads. People will be able to travel a lot more easily, cut down on times for businesses as well as commuters. And it'll put those construction workers back to work, which means that folks are going to be able to spend some money at those restaurants and stores around the Quad City area. And we can pay for it, but this is part of the reason why I don't want to extend tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. That would cost $1 trillion over 10 years. If you spend $1 trillion giving me a tax break or Warren Buffett a tax break, then you can't also spend that money to put people back to work rebuilding the I-74. And when you think about what's more likely to create jobs and grow our middle class, I think it's pretty clear that a big project like that is going to do a lot more than a tax break for me.
Final question for you, if I
Sure.
can. Talking about businesses and the tax cuts you talked about today and proposing. Martha from Moline, small business for 25 years. She says the banks are still too tight with money, so it's hard to grow for a small business now.
Yeah. You know, I've been hearing that a lot. I was on a bus tour out in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and everywhere I go, when I talk to small businesses, they say, you know what, we've gotten through some of the toughest times back in 08, 09. We want to do some more hiring. We're seeing more business opportunities, but banks haven't loosened up credit lines enough for us to go ahead and do that. And so what I promised to every small business is we're going to continue to do everything we can through the SBA, the Small Business Administration, to help fill some of those gaps in financing. But that's not enough. And what I want us to do is to have discussions with bankers around the country to figure out what is it that's holding them back. Because I think there are a lot of small businesses out there that are ready to grow. They just need to be able to get some of the credit that traditionally has been extended to them. And these are folks who have made all their payments. So it's not a situation where they're not a known entity out there. Unfortunately, I think sometimes these banks swing from side to side. They go from giving too much credit to folks who probably didn't deserve it to now pulling back too much for folks who do deserve it. And we got to get that happy medium. We're going to work on that.
Mr. President, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It is also important to note that I have been in touch with the Romney campaign throughout the day today as well. We hope to be able to get a chance to sit down with him in the days to come. Reporting from the White House, Gary Mativier, KWQC TV6 News.
The Iowa Romney campaign did speak out today, saying the tax hike isn't what the country needs when the unemployment rate stands at 8.2%.
Mitt Romney wants to take us a different direction. He wants to keep the taxes lower. He wants to reform the tax code. He wants to reduce regulation. He wants to help small businesses and individuals start to create jobs and get this economy moving again.
And still to come at 10, more on Gary's experience in the nation's capital. We'll hear from cabinet members on some topics many of you find important.
Uh-oh, no, no, no! No!
We have breaking news off the top at 6 tonight. A deadly plane crash at the Quad City Air Show. Police say the pilot of one of an L-39 Albatross jets was killed. Now, the plane started by flying in formation. Then, there they are in formation. Then you can see they separate. The two in back veer off into something called a split break. You can see it appears the plane on the bottom right of your screen. Well, it appears to be flying just a little too low. Moments later, this is what the crowd saw. A huge fireball and black smoke just filling the sky. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Goodsit. It is a story we first brought you early this afternoon. Tonight, we have team coverage. KWQC's Jonna Clausing live at the airport. KWQC's Mark Stevens joins us now live from Davenport in the crash scene. And Mark, what's the latest?
Elizabeth, police and FAA officials are currently placing flags out in the debris field, marking out places where wreckage is currently sitting. It's about 200 yards in that direction, sitting in an alfalfa field. Now, police tell us that the jet involved was in a 45-degree bank when it failed to pull out and crashed. The single pilot of that plane was killed in the crash. Now, the FAA was already at the air show when the crash happened. After that crash, air show officials asked people over the loudspeakers to turn in any video they had of the crash to help with the investigation, and the air show says a dozen people volunteered their video. Now, the debris field is several hundred yards long and is at least 75 yards wide, and police say they will be here all night.
Just going to probably maintain a perimeter so that we don't miss anything for tonight, and probably end up maintaining that all night long and then continue until the morning.
Now, investigators will walk shoulder to shoulder through that debris field tomorrow, gathering the wreckage of the aircraft. They'll take those pieces to a hangar to continue their investigation and determine the cause of this crash. Reporting live in Davenport, Mark Stevens, KWQC, TV6 News.
Mark, thank you. Now we want to show you where that plane crash happened. It was here in an alfalfa field, and it's not far from the Flying J in Davenport. Hundreds of people were gathered at the Quad City Air Show, though, when this happened, and you can see that is where they were sitting, all of those who attended the event witnessing the crash there. Now, KWQC's Jonna Klossing was at the airport at the same time as well, and she joins us now live from the airport. And Jonna, what can you tell us? Obviously not what people thought they were going to see.
No, Elizabeth, people did not expect this at all. I was actually here wrapping up an interview when I saw the explosion out of the corner of my eye, and many people here today watched in horror as the plane took a nosedive straight to the ground. This is video prior to the crash. Families here enjoying the show with their eyes to the sky, watching these planes do their tricks and flips, the rain not stopping them from having a family fun day. Now, that's a story we thought we would bring you today, but things soon turned tragic. You can see here we captured the aftermath of the crash, this heavy smoke on camera. Meanwhile, spectators looked on, visibly shaken up about what they just witnessed.
We thought it was going to pull back up, and it didn't, and you just saw the explosion and the fire, and it's just horrible, really.
It happened, and you just thought it could have been part of the show, but it really is not. It's one of those things where it catches you off guard, and your thoughts are just with the pilot and his family, and everybody here, I believe, is thinking and hoping the same thing, just that hopefully he's okay. We're all a little disturbed that we didn't see an eject, we didn't see a shoot.
No word yet on what caused the crash, but airshow officials say weather was not a factor. We'll have a little bit more on that coming up later in the newscast. Elizabeth?
Jonna, thank you. We want to now give you a look at what a typical split formation or break formation is supposed to look like. Now, this is video from the Hopper Flight Team's website. 4 planes, though, instead of 3. You can see the lead plane continues to move forward while the planes in back split off in different directions. They are then supposed to regain altitude, continue flying on. We are told that is not what happened in this case. The L-39 Albatross jets are single-engine jet trainers. The planes are built in Czechoslovakia. Design began in 1966. They're used by Russian and other air forces for light attack and reconnaissance. The team's website says the performance planes have a max speed of 485 miles per hour and can reach a ceiling of nearly 38,000 feet. There are believed to be 220 L-39s actively flying in the U.S. alone. According to L39.com, a website devoted to the planes, 2 other L39s have crashed this year. One person was killed in January in Rainbow City, Alabama. Another deadly crash in May killed 2 in Boulder City, Nevada. Since 1998, the website lists 20 L39 crashes total, more than half of them fatal. And in more than 2 decades of performances, there have only been 3 crashes at the Quad City Air Show. The most recent in 2003, when a P-51 Mustang airplane was forced to crash land on its belly. Its landing gear didn't open. Now, the pilot did make it out okay. But in 1992, a Harrier jet was leaving the Quad Cities the day after the show when it crashed. The pilot ejected and later died at the hospital. That jet was part of the static ground display. It never actually flew during the show. Then in 1991, a Formula V air racing plane crashed while thousands watched from the ground. The pilot killed instantly. It was later determined that the wing of the plane separated during the performance, and that crash was blamed on structural failure.
Good morning. You're waking up to a beautiful shot of the sunrise on this holiday, this Labor Day. It's 5:53. This morning, many of us across QCA and the country are remembering Glenn Smith, the pilot who lost his life this weekend when his plane crashed at the Quad Cities Air Show. KWQC Amber O'Brien is live from the crash site right now. And Amber, out of respect for the fallen pilot, the show did continue yesterday.
That's right. They did have the show go on Sunday as well after, everything that did happen on Saturday. And actually, we're at the site where that accident did happen. It's back here. Now that it's starting to lighten up a little bit, you can see a little bit more of this field. It was back farther where the crash actually happened. And then this morning as well, there is a memorial site here for the pilot who passed away. You can take a look at the flowers and the picture that were laid out here for him, and you can read it. It's probably hard for you to see through the camera, but forever flying high, and obviously that's a momentum for that pilot himself. Now we're going to take a look at the video from the crash. A Soviet-era jet was flying in formation with others Saturday when it went down, crashing into an alfalfa field, the one right here in northwest Davenport. Now it happened just before 1:30 in the afternoon, just as the flying was really getting going. The crash stunned thousands of spectators who couldn't believe their eyes when the formation took a turn for the worse. Spectators watched Smith's plane erupt into flames, followed by a cloud of gray smoke. No spectators at the show were hurt, but the pilot was killed. Now we spoke with a woman who was watching the Hopper show when Smith's plane took that fatal dive. She tells us what she was going through when that event unfolded in front of her.
Fireball, and I was like, did that just really happen, or was it my eyes playing tricks on me? Then it took me a minute, and then I realized, yeah, it really did happen.
She tells us she immediately got into her car and drove out to this field to see if the pilot did survive. When she got here, many other people were already out here, and they told her that the pilot did not survive the crash. Now, the pilot himself was a part of that Hoppers team. He was the newest to the team, but he has been flying for a long, long time. And, we found out that many accidents like this ones are, really unfortunate. They really can't prepare. They're always planning for safety checks and things like we talked about already this morning, but something like this you really can never prepare for. Reporting live in Davenport, Amber O'Brien, KWQC, TV6 News.
If you don't give somebody some credits, some tax breaks to allow them to survive, we're going to be buckling under.
The answers to your questions. We asked what you wanted to hear from GOP presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Tonight, a local small business owner's question and his reaction to Romney's answer. Decision 2012 tops your first 6 minutes tonight.
It is historic, visit after visit to an area that is so pivotal in the most important race in government. Which one of these men will be the next president? We could be deciding that, and they know that. That is why last month, President Obama invited us to Washington, D.C. for an exclusive interview and behind-the-scenes look at the White House. Now, his Republican rival, Mitt Romney, agrees to talk one-on-one. Both interviews have one common goal: to let you, our viewers, get the chance to have your voices heard by the men who hope to lead our nation for the next 4 years. Tonight, it is Mitt Romney's turn to answer your questions. Rick from Davenport has a small business, and he wants to know, beyond the words, what is someone going to do to actually stand up for the backbone of this country, which is the small business that he says the middle class and small businesses are paying for just about everything in this country.
Well, he's right. There are a very small number of businesses and people that are paying the lion's share of all the burdens of the country. We're trying to keep the tax rates down on small business. The president's proposed raising the tax rate on small businesses. I oppose raising taxes on anyone, including small business. I also think you have to have government regulators stop thinking of business as the enemy and start recognizing part of their job is to help encourage business. And I think Obamacare is the wrong way to go for small business. I'd much rather see us have a system of health care that's driven by consumer choice, not government choice.
We are seeing an unprecedented amount of campaign ads in this area, being besieged from everything from welfare reform to Medicare. A lot of people are confused. They think someone must be lying to us, and DJ puts it this way. He says, when are the attack ads actually going to give way to some positive ads with some significance?
Well, I think you're going to find from my campaign that our ads focus on distinctions between myself and the president on policy issues. I describe where I stand and where he stands, and people can make a choice. Unfortunately, the president's folks have launched a campaign of personal character assassination. I think that diminishes the White House and diminishes the opportunity people have to really focus on issues.
You were talking about the military today, and Fred Liu is a veteran, and he wants to know what you are specifically going to do to make our military ready for anything that may come our way.
Well, first of all, I would not do what the president's doing, which is cutting some $1 trillion from our military over this decade. That's simply the wrong way to go. The Secretary of Defense said that those kinds of cuts to our military would be devastating. And I don't believe in those kinds of cuts. I think it's a mistake. I think we have to maintain a military second to none. The president is the first since Roosevelt to say we won't have the capacity to engage in 2 wars at once. I don't want to be in any war, but I want to have the capacity to make sure that people around the world know you don't test the United States of America when it comes to our military might.
And Governor, our final question comes from Judy in Bettendorf. She's wondering, if you are elected, how are you going to get the jobs back from overseas here, so where we can have jobs where more people are earning a living to pay for things like education and so many other social issues that we are dealing with right now?
Yeah, we've seen too many jobs go overseas, and what we want to do is make America a more attractive place for employers to come back here and build jobs here. And there are a number of things I do. Number one, make sure trade works for us, and when people cheat, like China's cheated, there have to be consequences. They got to be called on the carpet. Number two, we got to take advantage of our energy resources. We got a lot of energy. Low-cost energy will bring back manufacturing to America. Number three, we got to fix our schools. Number four, we got to balance our budget. And number five, we've got to help small business. The taxes, the regulation, Obamacare, all these things are crushing small businesses. Small businesses where job growth comes from, and that's why I'm going to champion it.
And I will tack on one additional question. People hear in every campaign, we hear hope, we hear change, we hear all these big ideas. Will we get something done?
Well, I think people who can look over the last 4 years will remember the speech of the president when he accepted the nomination of his party and all the things he said he'd do. Cut the deficit in half, he doubled it. Get more jobs. We've had 8% unemployment for over 42 months now. 50% of kids coming out of college can't get jobs or college appropriate jobs. He has not been able to deliver on the promises he made. That's why I think people recognize it's time to have someone new, give someone who spent his life in the private sector, as I have, who understand how jobs come and go. That kind of expertise is needed in Washington. I expect to get America working again, and I'll work with Democrats and Republicans to finally get America back on track.
Governor Romney, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to be with you.
The question about small businesses and taxes came from one of our viewers. Rick from Davenport submitted the question, hoping to hear Mitt Romney's position on the issue. KWQC's Erica Cervantes spoke with Rick and joins us with more.
Sharon, Rick Piot owns Rick's Wreck Repair in Davenport. He's been in business for 7 years and has worked out of this building for 3 years. Rick submitted his question because he wants answers about how small business owners like himself can continue to do business during these tough economic times.
I oppose raising taxes on anyone, including small business.
As Rick Piot hears the answer to his questions from presidential candidate Mitt Romney, this is his reaction.
It's kind of evasive. Normal political evasiveness.
The owner of Rick's Wreck Repair says owning his auto body shop is rewarding, but at times it can be a struggle.
It makes it very hard at the end of the quarter when taxes come due, and I'm lucky if I've got any money left by the time I pay all my taxes.
Rick ran his business out of his home for a few years, then bought property and relocated to the historic Washington Street district.
It's very tough. That's why I had to go through the SBA program that I did, that allowed me to have some sweat equity in my business, and I didn't have to put near as much money down to make the purchase to buy my building.
He would like to expand, but he's running into the same problem as other small business owners. Financing is extremely hard to get.
If you don't give somebody some credits, some tax breaks to allow them to survive, we're going to be buckling under. We're not going to have a middle class.
Rick knows helping small business owners is not an easy problem to fix, but he hopes one of the candidates will come up with a solution.
I'd love to see anybody, either candidate or anybody else, step in that can get a grip on things and help stimulate the economy enough that the middle class feels comfortable instead of being the bad guy all the time.
In Davenport, Erica Cervantes, KWQC TV6 News.
Rick adds another issue he's facing is offering incentives to keep employees. He says it's hard competing against bigger auto body shops that can offer higher pay and more benefits.
But breaking news tops your first 6 minutes tonight. The Amber Alert for 3-week-old Mia Thompson from Toulon, Illinois has now been canceled. Authorities telling us she has been found tonight and her mother has been arrested. Back to our breaking news story tonight about the Toulon investigation into a missing baby. The mother reporting the baby, the 3-week-old, was taken from her car. There is the baby right there. Elizabeth Goodset just back tonight with the very latest breaking details on this right now. Elizabeth?
Let me tell you, it was very much surprising news really to everyone who had been waiting for word about baby Mia. There were hugs, big smiles, lots of tears outside the Stark County Sheriff's Office in Toulon. You know, worried friends, relatives. They learned the Amber Alert was canceled. Little Mia was found alive. That joy, though, quickly turned to dismay midway through the sheriff's announcement tonight.
And let me say right now, for this particular incident, I'm so damn happy I could cry. So I hope we get through here. The child was found alive on a rural Stark County road, where it had either been dumped or placed there by subjects unknown. The child was taken by ambulance to area hospital to be checked out. It remains under investigation, but at this time, the child's mother, Kendra Meeker, age 19, has been arrested on charges relating to the incident. That's all I have to say right now.
It was a tense 12 hours as the community first learned of the missing 3-week-old and began searching for her. Her mother telling police she had gone to the post office early this morning with both her daughters, 3-week-old Mia and an 11-month-old. But when she got home, she realized little Mia was not in the back seat. Now, police searched 2 different locations, the family's home and a campground just a few minutes away where we are told the family owns property. The community came together with a prayer vigil, hoping for a miracle, and relatives tell us that is what happened just about 2 hours ago. Now, at this point, police are not releasing a lot of details. No word on the charges Kendra Meeker faces. If she faces charges, no word on the baby's condition either. The sheriff says, though, she was transported to Peoria to be checked out. He tells us she was taking nourishment at the scene, and family members say they are optimistic. Sharon?
It has been a long, expensive, and intense journey on the campaign trail. Months of battling for your vote, and it all comes down to this: Election Day, casting your ballot, your decision on the future of this country.
We are following the races tonight. Complete KWQC team coverage in both Iowa and Illinois, from congressional candidates to issues on the ballots, the impact of redistricting, and voter turnout. Decision 2012 is here, and it tops your news at 5. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon DeReek.
And I'm Gary Abitivier. It is one of the closest and most expensive presidential elections in history. President Barack Obama and former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney and their backers have spent $1 billion to make their case. Now you, the voters, decide.
From the presidential race to some hotly contested local races, local voting locations are keeping very busy today. We begin our coverage tonight with KWQC's Elizabeth Goodset, who is live in Rock Island with a look at voter turnout so far.
Well, that's right. You know, we have heard about the long lines across the QCA. Voters telling us this election is so close. They really wanted to turn out no matter how long it took to be heard. And local election officials and staffers and volunteers tell us that is what they like to hear. Hundreds of volunteers around the area have been working at polling places, making sure voters are where they're supposed to be and answering questions about the process. Many are still counting those early ballots. In Rock Island County, nearly 20,000, several hundred more than in 2008, and in Scott County, 45,000. That's up 10,000 from the last presidential election. So many that workers counted until 10 last night. They were back at it again this morning at 7, and the ballots and the voters are still coming in.
Polls as of this morning, about 11 o'clock, we had about 10,000, 11,000 people at the polls. Of course, I've been saying I was hoping we'd get a 70% return, which means we need to see about 40,000 people at the polls today.
We had voted 30% of our potential turnout early in absentee, so you know, when you have approximately a third of the votes in before Election Day, that's always helpful.
Yeah, he says Rock Island County is on track to see 67 or 68,000 voters. That is not a record, but it is still a good turnout. And of course, another big push happening right now as everyone gets off work and wants to head out to the polls. And now we want to take a look at how that last-minute campaigning is going across the river. Let's go to Erica Cervantes at Scott County Republican headquarters. Hi, Erica. Elizabeth, it is very busy here at Republican headquarters here in Davenport. Volunteers are making phone calls, answering last-minute voter questions, and making that final push to get people out to the polls. Now, this is the first time voting in a presidential election for some. We spoke to one student voter about the process.
It is the first election, first presidential election I've been able to vote in. I missed the 2008 election by 4 days, so it's very exciting. It's been really exciting to be on a college campus and to be in that sort of environment where those, a lot of those discussions are happening. It was very exciting, so I'll miss it. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out, I think, and for me the main thing is that regardless of who wins, they come and work together.
Now, St. Ambrose University has seen a record number of students become involved in political clubs. School leaders say it's because Iowa is a swing state, and with so many candidate visits and attention paid to Iowa, it's really encouraged students to become part of the political process. Live in Davenport, Erica Cervantes, KWQC TV6 News.
We'll, of course, not only be watching the presidential results, but some local results, too, including congressional races in Iowa. In the 2nd District, Republican John Archer is running against the incumbent Democrat Dave Loebsack. But one element changing how the campaigns have worked in this election year is redistricting. Iowa lost a congressional seat, and the remaining districts picked up new counties. KWQC's Mark Stevens continues our Decision 2012 coverage live from Davenport. And Mark, that's affecting the race that you're watching tonight.
That's right, Sharon. I'm at the Scott County Democratic Victory Party headquarters, where the party hasn't started yet, but about 400 people are expected to be here tonight, including Congressman Dave Loebsack. And now he spent a lot of time introducing himself to voters in this county in particular because he's never represented this area before. Now, after redistricting, the new 2nd Congressional District covers all of southeast Iowa, including 10 counties that Loebsack has not represented in Congress. 4 of them coming from the former 3rd District, with half voting Republican in the election 2 years ago. And Loebsack has also lost a Democratic stronghold in Cedar Rapids, with Lynn County moving to a different congressional district. That's the numbers game, but the issues are what's important to the new 2nd District have also changed. Scott County has, of course, the Rock Island Arsenal and I-74, but the 2nd District congressman, whoever that may be at the end of the night, has to work to represent Burlington, Muscatine, and several of Iowa's poorer southern counties. Now, political science professors say winning in a new district means putting down roots early.
So I think it's sometimes a question of how soon you accept the fact that there really is a new district. You know, if you get started right away, you know, the transition is easier.
Now, Roba says redistricting also evens out the race for Loebsack's opponent, John Archer. He's had to spend time, just like Loebsack, introducing himself throughout the district. And just like any election, though, it's up to the voters who will decide which man to send to Congress. Reporting live in Davenport, Mark Stevens, KWQC TV6 News.
In Illinois, we'll be keeping an eye on several races, including the state Senate in District 36. Republican Bill Albrecht is running against Democrat incumbent Mike Jacobs. And in the U.S. House in District 17, Democrat Cheri Bustos running against Republican incumbent Bobby Schilling. This will be the first general election since new districts were withdrawn. In the primary, some incumbents were forced to run against each other because there are 18 districts now instead of 19. KWQC's Fran Riley is following the hotly contested race for the 17th District. He continues our Decision 2012 coverage live from Rock Island.
And when this district was redrawn, it now includes parts of Peoria and Rockford, very heavily Democratic, as you might expect. Congressman Schilling, although the incumbent is trying to lure independents and perhaps those soft Democrats who might be convinced to vote Republican. Schilling knows in order to seal the deal, he has to win Rock Island County.
Of course, Rock Island County, to see how close our numbers are there. You know, if we win Rock Island, this race is over. If we're real close into Rock Island, we're still in pretty darn good shape.
And there are about 92,000 eligible voters in Rock Island County. Almost half of them are Democrat, so it'll be a tough task for Congressman Bobby Schilling as he tries to retain his congressional seat in this district. Live in Rock Island, Fran Riley, KWQC. TV6 News.
And you can hear from Schilling Challenger Sherry Bustos tonight at 6.
Winter doesn't officially start until tomorrow, but this winter storm is hitting the QCA and hitting hard tonight. The first snowstorm of the season. Snow has been coming down for hours, blowing winds, dangerous driving conditions out there right now. Complete team coverage tonight from Illinois and Iowa. We have our crews all over the QCA keeping you informed. Following the developments of this storm, as we have been all week long, Teresa Bryant, Eric Maitland, both here tonight. Let's start tonight with very latest at 5 on the forecast. Eric Maitland.
Well, you know, the back edge of the snow is already showing up on our Doppler radar. You can see that now. Right around Wilton, it's cleared Wilton now and heading for the Metro Quad Cities, but that would be the back edge of the falling snow. Now, in terms of the falling snow, we still have some heavy snow to the east of the Metro Quad Cities. You can see that swath of dark blue that extends north and south from Galva, especially up Interstate 88 from the Quad Cities. This is all going to continue for the evening hours. This will be the snow that falls and accumulates to the tune of, again, about 3 to 6 inches, still holding with those totals here in the Quad Cities. By the way, why don't you get onto our Facebook page, and if you can, take a second, let us know what your snowfall totals have been, because so far we've had a little bit of trouble getting some of those snowfall reports in from the Weather Service. Of course, they're very busy with this blizzard, as are we. But as far as our temperatures are concerned, we're back to the 20s now, 28 in the Quad Cities. As the snow has fallen, so have our temperatures slowly but surely, and those winds have really cranked up. We were mentioning gusts around 50 miles per hour. Of course, that's what we've had today. Gusts of 52 in the last hour here in the Quad Cities. That's caused the blowing and drifting snow, the low visibilities, and all the travel problems that you've seen all day long once that snow began to fall. And with that, I have to remind you that there's also that thing called wind chill. That is certainly back, and with wind chills in the teens right now, dropping to the single digits this evening, make sure you're prepared. If you have to go outside or if you absolutely have to drive, make sure you're dressed for it, because you never know. You might end up in an accident. Certainly we hope that doesn't happen, but if you have to stand outside the car and talk to people, the law enforcement, the other people, you're going to have to be outside for at least a while, and that is a very biting cold already. So we'll see the snow taper off from west to east as we go through the evening. 24 at 8 o'clock. The temperature is kind of academic at this point, because again, the wind chills will be dropping to the single digits. 15 by midnight. At that point, the whole QCA should be done with the falling snow, but the blowing and drifting will continue tonight. And even as we get into the daytime tomorrow, our skies mainly clear. We'll see some afternoon sun. It's still going to be windy, and that will keep those wind chills in the single digits, with highs only back to the low 20s.
I just want to say real quick, your weather team has been spot on, right on target with this storm so far. Nice work on that front. And we're not done yet. A lot of cold nights ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Now we're still looking for another storm in our future next week. And weather map's still a little bit iffy on that one. But of course, as we track this one, we'll track that one too.
All right, Eric, thank you. Back to the one we're in right now. Let's let you know tonight, we are getting a lot of reports of stranded motorists out there. Right now, there are 2 jackknife semis on I-88. One at mile marker 12, the other at 17. Traffic at a standstill right now in that area. This again just showing how dangerous driving conditions can be. Travel not advised at all throughout our area. Let's check in with Teresa Bryant live outside the studios right now with a look at Brady Street Hill, and always a tough spot for drivers. And you're in a tough spot with all this wind and snow driving right in your face, Teresa.
Okay, ever since the blustery conditions and the changeover took place about 10:30 this morning, we've been seeing miserable conditions across the region. As you can see, there's still plenty of cars trying to make their way up Brady Street Hill in spite of the heavy snow and the blustery winds, which have been moving up and increasing in excess of 50 miles per hour in some spots. And again, we've been getting quite a bit of snow. About 3 to 4 inches of snow right here in the Quad Cities metro area, and more to come through the evening hours, so the blustery conditions expected to continue. Most Iowa and Illinois roads are reported in poor winter driving conditions. So with all of that sideways snow, reducing visibilities on area roadways, if you don't have to step outside or drive at all, please do not do so, because it is pretty treacherous out here. Looks like we're going to continue to see snowfall for at least the next couple of hours before it all wraps up and the gusty winds begin to die down, and then it's time to dig out in the next 24 hours. We'll take a look at what's happening across the region a little bit more in depth later on in this newscast. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Teresa, thank you. We want to change things up here for a bit because we've been talking about people stranded throughout the area. Sheriff Thompson from Mercer County is on the phone with us right now as we continue to look at Teresa's shot. And we want to go to you, Sheriff, because there are a lot of people that drive out thinking that they can make it. Perhaps they have a four-wheel drive vehicle or a van that has really good track control. But there are a lot of people stuck, whether it be in their cars or in their homes tonight. What are some of the things that you are responding to at this hour?
Well, we've had a lot of vehicles in the ditch. We've not had any serious crashes, Gary, but we've got a lot of people stuck. The big problem is, whether you have a four-wheel drive or whether you don't, the big problem down here has been we've got a lot of places where it's just a whiteout. You can't see. You can't tell where the road is or isn't. And we are, the driving conditions are just deplorable. We're asking folks to please not be on the roads unless you absolutely have to. I know a lot of the wrecker services down here are pulling their vehicles off now that it's dark. The county highway department is pulling their vehicles off the road. So we're just asking folks to please not be out on the roadway.
Sheriff, how are you responding to people? Obviously, you're just trying to get them out of their vehicles and get them into a safe place. Are you finding a lot of people that have been stuck for a considerable amount of time?
Yeah, there's been, that's been part of the problem, and we got a limited number of four-wheel drive vehicles that we're using to get to them, and that kind of adds to the problem too, and the calls are backing up, and it's not just one or two cars here and there. It's we've had several areas where there's 4, 5, 6 cars that are stacked up. So it obviously takes some time to try to get them moving again. Anything that's off the roadways, we'll probably we'll just leave them there till it's safe enough to get them out.
Sure, Sheriff, as we talked to you, we're looking at a map that shows just how bad the conditions are out there. And of course, not just for the people that are venturing out, but your crews that have to be out there, have to work throughout the night tonight. I assume you have a lot of staff on hand and that you prepare to work well into the night if need be.
Whatever it's going to take to get it done. But we don't have a lot of staff on hand, but the people that we do have, we're trying to put out there as best we can.
Sheriff Thompson, thank you very much for what you're doing for our community. Talking to us on the phone from Mercer County tonight. A reminder that the conditions it's not worth the risk to be out there. KWQC's Mark Stevens is actually out there with a unique approach to the storm tonight. We're going to look at this in real time as he takes us actually on the roads to show us what those conditions are. Mark?
Gary, we've been cruising along John Deere Road here, and we're averaging about 25 miles in a 55-mile-per-hour zone. What you can see is the road is still pretty well snow-covered. It is relatively clean. We've been on a couple of side streets that haven't been plowed for at least a couple of hours. But what we're seeing is it's very difficult to see where the center lines are and the end lines are on the road, and the wind really is the story. In parts around John Deere Road, over up by Kelowna Road, where the bend is, once the wind gets a chance to pick up some of that snow, it is just like Sheriff Thompson was describing, a complete whiteout condition. We did see at least one car that was spun out on the side of the road. There were other cars that spun out as well when they were trying to take their turns onto John Deere Road. As we're heading farther into the down Moline area, it is a little easier to see, but once you get past the bright city lights, visibility really getting quite poor out here. I know my counterpart Elizabeth Goodsit is also in Moline tonight. Elizabeth, go ahead and take it from me.
Mark, exactly, we're seeing the same things you were just talking about. City traffic, very different from county traffic. And take a look, this is rush hour here on River Drive in Moline, right at the I-74 ramp. Not a lot of cars, and that's actually what we want to see at this point. We don't want cars out here if they don't have to be. We are hearing from Facebook friends and from law enforcement that really, if you don't have to be out on the roads, you shouldn't. 88, very bad. The cars in ditches. Route 6, Route 150, icy on the roads. Visibility down to about 1/10 of a mile. And here in the metro, you can see exactly why that would be. You can see the wind just blowing across the roads, and while the plows have been out doing what they can, this blowing and drifting is making it very difficult to drive, even when you are in those lights of the city that Mark was talking about. And we also we're seeing the change in the storm, because it was kind of ice pellets hitting us a little bit earlier. Now it's that powdery, so it's really flying across the road, making a huge difference. Crews want you to stay off the roads. Rock Island, Moline declaring snow emergencies so they can get the plows really out there doing the job. And it's the same thing in Iowa, in Davenport. That's where KWQC's Erica Cervantes is live as well.
Well, Elizabeth, we're here at the intersection of Kimberly and Brady, of course, one of the busiest intersections in the entire Quad Cities, and it is slow going here. People are being very cautious. They're going very slow, especially when they take their turns, but the road is snow covered. We have seen dozens of plows from both the Iowa DOT and the city come through to remove the snow, but the snow is very light and fluffy now, like you said, and it's just blowing. The wind is just absolutely insane out here. We can see the street signs, and when the gust of wind comes, you could just see where it says, the sign that says Brady Street, it just shakes back and forth. It looks like it wants to fall off because it's shaking so hard. But the city of Davenport is out. They are plowing the roads. They say they have almost all of the emergency snow routes cleared off. They say there's a couple more they still have to get to, and then they should get to the neighborhood sometime soon. But they are out in full force. They have a 24-hour operation. They have crews working 12-hour shifts to get all of the snow removed. And they say, don't forget, there is a snow emergency in effect. So if you are parking your car on the street, you need to park on the even side of the street, since it is an even day, so that way the crews can get the plows through. Live in Davenport, Erica Cervantes, KWQC TV6 News.